So I will call this meeting to order. We'll start with the consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at AHA meetings will be approved by one vote unless any trustee desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and action on the following items. Minutes of the monthly finance meeting on November 19, 2019. Minutes of the monthly finance meeting on December 17, 2019. Minutes of the regular trustee meeting on November 19, 2019. Minutes of the special meeting on December 20th, 2019. And a check report November 9th, 2019 through January 8th, 2020.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Jay Randalls to approve the consent agenda as it was presented. Roll call vote, please.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Hanford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob. Yes.
All right, I'm going to move the BKD audit report for fiscal year 2019 to the front here. Andrew, Monic?
Yes.
Pretty close?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, great. With BKD is here to do that. That way he can head back to Tulsa whenever he is finished. So Andrew, I will turn it over to you and thank you again for being here to do this presentation.
Well, thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve your organization over the past few years. As Jason said, my name is Andrew Monic. I'm a director with BKD. I've been in service to your organization in varying capacities over the last 5 years, resulting now with being able to kind of manage and oversee the audit process. And so I really do appreciate the opportunity to take care of you guys. It's truly a passion of mine, as I said during the finance committee, to work with rural hospitals. It's become something of a focus for me, and I really do love working with the facilities that I serve. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes discussing the audit results from the June 30, 2019 financial statement audit of Share Medical Center. What you should have in front of you is three different things. So you'll have a copy of the draft audited financial statements, a copy of the draft management letter, and then lastly, you should have a copy of the presentation that we're going to be going through today. Now, if you were here for the Finance Committee meeting, it might say Finance Committee. You need to be looking at the one that says Board of Trustees. That will be the one that I'm going to be rolling off of for this particular meeting. So the audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. There was no scope limitations that were noted during the audit process. We had an unmodified or clean opinion, which is good. That's what you want, that's what you expect, and that's what you've always received as long as we've been performing your audit. There is one emphasis of matter paragraph that we went into lengthy discussion on during the Finance Committee meeting related to the fact that there is still a going concern attached to the audited financial statements. You can read more about that in the notes to the financial statements, or certainly ask questions about them further. Additionally, during that Finance Committee meeting, we discussed the management letter in depth, as well as the journal entries that were identified through the audit process. So for the next couple of minutes, I'd like to take a look at the audited financial statements in a condensed format that's in your presentation so you can see what we're going over. The next page, starting with balance sheets, is the asset portion of the balance sheet. What I'd like to try and identify for you are some key changes that have happened year over year and or significant items that I want to call to your attention that were identified through this audit. So specifically, the most important thing that you look at as you look at the balance sheet is the identification of the estimated amounts due from third-party payers. It's about the third or fourth line on the asset portion of the balance sheet, and that specifically includes a $1 million receivable at year end. As you all know, the hospital converted to a critical access hospital effective July, I can't remember if it's 13th or 14th, 2018, but since that date, Medicare has paid us differently than they used to. Essentially, they're paying us based on the cost that it takes to provide that care to the Medicare beneficiaries. So in this case, Medicare throughout the year had been underpaying the organization based on what they should have actually been paid, just due to the fact that Medicare doesn't like to start writing large checks until they know exactly how much it costs for those patients to be taken care of. So in this case, after BKD prepared the cost report, which is due 5 months after year end, we were able to take a look at that cost report and note that there was almost $1 million receivable related to just the services rendered during 2019. As a result, a journal entry was identified and posted through the financial statements, which resulted in an increase in that position of $1 million and the increase of this receivable of $1 million. That's probably the most important thing that I would call to your attention on the financial statements. I know everyone in here has been questioning, is Medicare paying us enough? Is this a good decision? The answer is that first year is always a transitional period. You almost never know exactly what you're going to get paid, and you almost can be assured that Medicare is not going to pay you enough that first year. So that is the largest thing I'll call to your attention on the balance sheet portion of the asset portion of the balance sheet. I'll also call to your attention the fact that if you look down the line in that change column from between 2018 and 2019, you'll note that none of the amounts changed very significantly other than capital assets, which is just a representation of the depreciation during the year on the assets that we already own. If you flip over to the liabilities section of the balance sheet, the only things I'll call to your attention are the fact that the line of credit during the year increased by approximately $305,000. At the same time, the long-term debt that the organization had decreased by almost $460,000, and that related primarily just to regularly scheduled payments on the long-term debt. If you'll flip over to the income statement or the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, the important numbers that I will point out to you is that during the year we saw approximately $2 million increase in net patient service revenue. At the same time, we saw an increase of salaries, wages, and employee benefits of about $500,000, offset by supplies and other expenses decreasing by about $250,000. So at the end of the day, our expenses increased by $100,000, but the organization's revenues increased by $1.8 million, meaning that the operating income or operating loss improved by almost $1.8 million year over year, which is a pretty substantial improvement for any organization. When you consider the very bottom line number, which is the increase in net position year over year, what you will note is that the organization still saw a positive increase in net position each of the last 2 years, and the answer is actually each of the last 3 years, if I were to show that third year. That's primarily driven by the fact that in the current year we had a pretty strong increase in our operating income. In the prior year we had the $1.7 million forgiveness of debt from the trust. And in all of those years, the sales tax revenue of approximately $1.2 million continued to benefit the organization. Questions about the financial statements? So for the last portion of the presentation, what I'd like to do is just take the trend information over the last few years and give you a feel for where the organization has gone over that period of time, and then also at the same time be able to compare the organization to some of its peer organizations. In this case, we're using metrics that represent A, all hospitals that have, rural hospitals that are less than $90 million in revenue, and then B, the second metric in each of these slides is going to be all Oklahoma hospitals. So it gives you kind of a feel for not only organizations that are pretty close to your size, but also the Oklahoma hospitals that are geographically are very close to your organization. The first slide we'll take a look at is days cash on hand. That metric essentially gives you the idea of if all revenues stopped coming into the organization, how many days could we continue to operate as is before we ran out of cash. And the organization over the last few months, over the last few years, vacillated somewhere in the ballpark of 16 to 25 days cash on hand. Compared to its peers, at least from the rural hospital perspective, they're at somewhere in the ballpark of 78 days cash on hand. I will throw out that the Oklahoma metric is often a little bit skewed based on the fact that many of the hospitals across Oklahoma are actually system hospitals, so maybe Integris or Mercy. Most of the cash, excess cash, is maintained at the system level. So these numbers are drawn down a little bit by the way that the hospital systems manage that cash flow. Days revenue and accounts receivable gives you the idea of how long it takes to convert that accounts receivable into cash. Typically, key performance indicators that I see are somewhere in the ballpark of 45 to 50 days cash on hand is where you really would like to be. Days in AR is where you really like to be. Based on the metrics I'm looking at, the organization has over the last 3 years been very much in that ballpark and very much in line with their peer organizations. The next slide takes a look at current ratio. Current ratio is essentially just the ratio of current assets that the organization owns to the current liabilities that it owes to its vendors or employees or others. In this case, what you'll see is that the current ratio has improved over the last few years. It's still not quite measuring in comparison to some of its other peer organizations, but it is making a positive direction. And also, what was a net working capital deficiency, meaning there were more liabilities than current assets, has switched so that we now have more current assets than current liabilities, which again, a lot of this is just, let's take the positive with, the financial statements in that there is a positive trend that we're seeing here and moving in a more positive direction. Average age of plant gives you an idea of how old the average your property, plant, and equipment are with respect to other organizations. This is a really loose metric, and as you can see, the metric kind of gets skewed sometimes when large assets become fully depreciated. So it's a function of depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation. So I don't really take much stock in this particular metric because, as you can see, it went up from 12.7 to 23 over a 3-year period, which is obviously not accurate. It's just that the electronic medical record became fully depreciated in the last year. And then the last two metrics that I want to highlight for you, especially as we try to take some positive spin from the financial statements, the operating margin over the last few years and the total margin over the last few years has continued to improve. If you look at the last 3 years' operating margin, we had a negative operating margin of 9.5, then we had a negative operating margin of 20%, and now we're back closer to zero with a negative operating margin of 4.6. And I like to remind my clients that sales tax is going to be sales tax, and you really can't control it. There will be drilling, or there won't be drilling. There will be activity in the area. But when you're managing operations and you're doing a good job of moving the needle from an operating perspective, that has the most influence on the organization's long-term ability to succeed and grow and sustain. And so when you see a positive operating margin trend, that's a good sign. In this case, your peer organizations are very much in line with where their 2019 operating margin was, and I will confirm that a lot of my small rural hospitals that are dealing with the similar issues that you are finding themselves in very similar positions from an operating margin perspective. And then total margin, it tells a very similar story, except again, you have the sales tax revenue that has helped to buoy some down years over the last few, and so every year over the last 3 years, you've got a positive total margin. Again, compared to your peer organizations, which have either had a small positive margin from a total perspective or a small negative margin, that is a pretty favorable comparison. With that, I will tell you thank you. I'm glad to answer any questions that you have. I would love to help you out. My contact information is on the last page of that slide, and I'm more than willing to get on a phone call or answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Andrew? one of the things we also discussed in finance is we will be filing a interim cost report as well, just so that we can help recover some of those monies on a cost report from our beginning of our fiscal year, which was July 1 to now as well. So maybe we don't have, and we did that last year as well, but there still was another $1 million out there that even in doing that. So, but we would rather have that money than the government. So we will be doing that as well. Any other thoughts, questions? If not, Andrew, I want to say thank you very much for coming and spending the day with us. And thank you and BKD for your work and effort in putting this audit together and the cost report and your continued support. So we appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you so much, and again, thank you for allowing me to be here. I truly care about the health of your organization and the rural hospitals across the state. It's a passion, so I just appreciate you letting me be here.
Very good. Thank you and have a safe trip home.
Speaker.
So being as we have that, and that has been presented, if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion on the UKD audit report for fiscal year 2019.
I move to approve the UKD audit report 2019.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Dr. Hannaford to approve the BKD audit report for fiscal year 2019. Roll call vote, please.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob. Yes. Gasper.
Yes. All right, cool. Now we'll jump back up to the CEO's report. Candace.
All right, well, lots of plates spinning here lately. Regarding our IT project, we are fully back up and running. We do have some issues here and there that Mark continues to troubleshoot. When you bring a system like that back up, it just doesn't come back up and everything work. There's lots of little issues with printers and fax machines and interfaces and things like that. So he's continued to work on those things. He did get a guy hired. I think it's been since our last meeting, that's been helping a lot. A guy named David Selby from Enid has joined us and doing a great job, kind of taking some of the pressure off Mark. So we got a clean bill of health from ISG that came in to troubleshoot to see if we had lost any data, and we had not. So that allowed us to start bringing things back online. He's probably got about 20 to 30 more PCs to deploy. He's got Office 365 up and running. We'll get the email possibly going tomorrow afternoon. So making good progress. The good thing, if there's some good that comes out of it, our server project, that equipment is coming in and probably will be installed ahead of time. So we were looking at March when we were first talking about replacing that data center, and it looks like we're going to be able to do that sooner. So we're getting there. It's been rough on everybody. Kudos to Mark. Mark has worked every day since December 11th. So he deserves a good long vacation when he can take that. When he can take that. Phone system, we have gotten our phone system fully replaced, up and running on that. They were here today to do some more training, and it seems to be going well. Revenue cycle management, we had TrueBridge in here last week for a couple of days. TrueBridge is the company that is going to handle our revenue cycle from front end to back end. And we're moving forward with that, getting all of the information that they need to put those pieces into place to kick that off on March 2nd. Dr. Self's deployment is coming fast. He will be in the office till about the 12th of February, I believe. Steve Madrid will be starting in his office on the 6th of February. We have been down there and Mark is getting equipment ordered so that we can accomplish that by February 6th. You have on the agenda that lease agreement between us and Dr. Self. We will be, Rick has looked at that agreement as well. We will be taking over his office space and seeing his patients during that time that he's gone. 340B drug program, we are all but finished with that, I believe. We've nearly got all the pieces in place. Hopefully, very soon, Mark will have the configurations to them that they need, testing on reports or something. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, actually, I'm needing signatures from all the board members that needs to be notarized. I have a notary here standing by. So after the meeting or whenever we want to do that, need signatures from everybody. It's just on a piece of the 340B Amerisourcebergen, which is, I'm not really sure what role they play, but they needed some documentation about the trust and how it operates and who the responsible parties are, so that's why we're having to furnish that. So please don't leave until I get your signature.
You might need to get those. Him and Rick have to back out, so you might
You do it.
do that as we're talking. So looking forward to finishing that up. That will hopefully bring us a little bit of money each month. And then the rural health clinic as well, same thing. We're working on finishing that up, and we'll do a mock audit of that, and then submit for them to do an on-site review so we can finish that up. Physician recruitment. Got a call with a physician tomorrow night. Say your prayers, cross your fingers. We hopefully we'll get to entertain maybe another doctor and see if we can't get a physician hired.
Our other ones that we had in.
Hard nose.
Okay.
Hard nose. We're done with those, yes. They've moved on to other things, so I think that is pretty much. I don't have anything to elaborate on in my report unless you have questions.
Office agreement with Dr. Silk.
Yeah,
After we approve her.
Oh,
you gotta,
sorry.
Are there any other questions for Candace?
I had one with, possibly with the Medicare expansion, I mean, that talk, will there be any new personnel needed to handle that if anything is,
Medicaid
or
expansion,
Medicaid, excuse me?
personnel needed, not that I can think of. What we need more than anything is to get the word out, education. I'm speaking at the Republican Women's meeting, I think the first week of February. But as that gets closer and closer, we'll be doing more education with the public, helping them understand the full scope of it and why it's important.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion in regards to the CEO's written report.
I make a motion we approve CEO's written report.
Second.
I have a motion by Jay Randalls, a second by Dr. Brown to approve the Share Medical Center written report for January 21st, 2020. Roll call vote, please.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Clifford,
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is the approval or disapproval of the office and personnel use agreement between the Alva Hospital Authority and Phillips Self MD. As you all know, Dr. Self is being employed, And, one, all those patients need to be taken care of. Two, for us to be able to do that, we are required to have and this, you probably ought to be saying this necessarily, but I mean, a use agreement in place, is that
Yes.
right, or a lease?
Yes, a lease agreement in place. We are required to make sure that we are paying fair market value for that, for lease of that practice, that space. So we've been through that process, and Rick took a look at it. Didn't really have any
Nothing
concerns.
major. Steve looked at it.
So-
He's even kind enough, I will say, that if, he doesn't want us to lose money in the process, so, if we get into it and are losing money, he said we could renegotiate the rates, so.
So it's $11,000 a month, and that is for his staff and his space.
All of his utilities, everything,
Use of equipment that.
Right.
supplies, everything.
And so then as patients come in, we then get the bill to get
So we'll be using
compensated.
our EHR to see those patients, and as supplies diminish, then we'll replace those. But
And this is for the next year?
we've entered it through January, I believe it was, that if he gets back before then, we can cancel the agreement.
There was a 30-day out either way as well. Thoughts, questions?
How we looked at clinic policies versus current? I'm sure that's been a concern versus.
It is not my plan to go in there and change anything, really, because his staff knows how to run a clinic. They've done it successfully for years, and so my plan is to be pretty much hands-off as I can be, as long as everything's going.
So their existing policies and procedures
Yes.
will remain in place,
Yes.
is what you're saying?
Yes, and that the contract, I don't know if it says policies per se, but his, ways,
His daily
His
operations.
methods.
his daily operation supersedes anything that we say, so.
Any other questions?
I think it's good for his patients. They'll get to keep going where they've been going. We're not mixing them in with our sick younger population sitting in the, we really don't want to do that, to intermingle your internal medications with your little kid colds and viruses going around. So I think being able to keep them down there is a good thing. It'd be good for his patients.
And having Steve Madrid to go in there to take care of those patients is a good deal. And it's a good way for Steve to be able to get reacquainted in our community. And it's good for those patients to be able to see a familiar face that many of them may have seen before as well. So. Well, if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve an office and personnel use agreement between the Alva Hospital Authority and Phillips Health and
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Dr. Brown, to approve an office and personnel use agreement between Alva Hospital Authority and Phillips Health, MD. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Hanford,
yes.
Randalls.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. All right. Thank you. Candace, thank you for your report as well. Next is the lengthy CFO report.
Well, I'm gonna make it shorter. Unfortunately, I'm gonna make it shorter. I'll remind everyone that normally this time of year, we meet in November, review the October financials, and we don't have a meeting in December. In our January meeting, we normally look at November and December financials and statistics. To go back, after the November meeting, Kevin was here for about a week, and then he left us. He has come back to do some training with me. Unfortunately, the second time he was back happened to be the day that our computers went down. So I had him for about a half a day that day. We were unable to do much for about 3-week period, so he didn't come back during that time. Obviously, no reason for him to. I thought we were on track to get November done, but unfortunately it did not get done. So I have no financials or statistics tonight, which will definitely shorten the board meeting, and that also unfortunately filters down to the homestead and the nursing home. So they're gonna be limited in what they can show us. We'll make this up at some future meeting, and that we're gonna have to combine some months. I feel very confident that I can get Kevin back here in another week or so. We can get November finished up. We were close. Maybe, go on to December. December and January are gonna look really strange this year because of the fact that we didn't bill for about 3 weeks. So our cash flow has really suffered.
Some parts were longer than 3 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, some of it was longer than 3 weeks. So it's kind of a perfect storm of bad things, and unfortunately it hit, but we're gonna get through it. We're already rebounding. The silver lining to me of the equipment going down, when we brought it back up, we realized we had issues we didn't even know we had. And they were important issues that we've had to fix, but it could have been a lot worse if it would have happened at a different time or in a different manner. So I feel like once we get fully back up and recover from this, we're gonna be in a really solid position. Critical access is gonna help us with our cash flow, but here again, we're waiting on the government for a sizable check that will help with cash flow, and then going forwards, critical access should help cash on an ongoing monthly basis. And all these other things we're doing, while they cost us money up front, which is unfortunate for cash flow, in the long run, like the 340B drug program, the rural health clinics, those are all gonna be money makers for us. We're gonna realize more money by doing that. Tree Bridge, who's gonna manage our revenue cycle, they're gonna be able to collect more money in a timely fashion. We're real excited about what they have to offer, so there are better times ahead. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? I think it's probably been hashed over and over. I'm gonna go on to the rest of this report, which looks pretty intimidating. I'm gonna try to get through it as quickly as we can. I went down to Bank Central and spoke to an individual down there because I knew we were signing contracts and agreements with companies for these various things we've gotten into. A lot of it involves financing, and they're very concerned about who can sign checks, who can't, understandably. So we needed to get our ducks in order as far as signature cards at the bank. I spoke to an individual at Bank Central. He was very specific about how he went about this process. So that's why there's so many different motions here. We've got a lot of different accounts that are set up differently. I hope after this, in the future, it'll be a pretty simple process to change things. It got a little messy this time because one of the first things I discovered is it hadn't been done in about 10 or 12 years. There were people on the signature card I can barely remember from my days on the bank, so it's been a while. So anyway, we'll be in a better position once we get this done. What I'd like to do is just read what's in the agenda, explain it to you briefly, and then if someone wants to make a motion, we can go from there. So the first one is instructing Bank Central to remove Darlene Sanderson, who's been off the board for a while, and Steve Knox as signers. And that's important because I was a signer on all these accounts, but it's back from my days on the board. I can't be a signer as CFO for internal control reasons. So I have to come off as a signer. Now I'm going to have access to all the financial information if you grant that. But that's why I'm coming off on all these. We're pulling other people off that obviously aren't here anymore, realigning things. We need at least 2 signers on each account. We have at least 3, so in case one is gone, the other 2 can still sign, which all of our checks and a lot of the documents we sign require 2 signatures. So, this first one's going to remove Darlene Sanderson and myself as signers on 3 different accounts at Bank Central. 4 different accounts at Bank Central, and those are our general fund where we deposit all of our, no, that's actually, even though it says general fund, that's the accounts payable account, the 750-2701. That's where we pay our bills out of. There's an employee fund that is 750-2818. Payroll account is 750-2925. And then the last one is kind of interesting because that's what's called, let me make sure this is the right. No, that's not it. Okay, and it is the cash deposit account, so that's where all our cash goes. So those are the 4 accounts we use a lot at Bank Central. We need to get Darlene and myself off, and we're gonna add Hayla Simon as a signer. She's the secretary of the board. It's kind of typical for the secretary to sign. And we're gonna leave Jason and Candace as signers on those accounts.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? None, I would entertain a motion.
I would make that motion as outlined by Steve Knox. Unless you really want me to read it again.
That's fine.
Okay.
Second.
No, these are all different things. I have a motion by Jay Randalls, a second by Dr. Hannaford, to approve the instruction for Bank Central to remove Darlene Sanderson and Steve Knox as signers on account number 7502701, 7502818, 7502925, and 2903669, and to add Hayla Simon as a signer, and to leave Jason Gaspard and Candace Allen as signers on those accounts. Roll call vote.
Bob,
Yes.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
All right.
All right, the next one is instructing Bank Central, and this is on account number 151492, which is our hospital capital improvement account. Remove Denise Reed, Dennis Shelby, and myself as signers on that account, and to add Hayla Simon and Candace Allen as signers, and to leave Jason Gaspard as a signer on that account. So there'll be 3 signers. Something interesting that we discovered on this account, this is the account that the city of Alva deposits our sales tax money into. Our share of the sales tax each month, they determine how much that's going to be. They put it in this account, and then we pull out of that account to make the loan payment to the Bank of Oklahoma on the loans that took the place of the bonds that we issued back when we built the new hospital. And am I speaking correctly? Okay. The problem is, all the paperwork shows that the city of Alva owns that account. And that's a problem because that's not their money. Once they write us a check, that becomes our money. That account is our account. it could become an issue at some point in the future. What we're probably gonna have to do is go to the city council and say, hey, guys, can you fix this? Because I don't think it was the city's intent to own that account. It's not their money. I think it was just a bookkeeping error probably made when it was set up. So I'm gonna get with the bank, furnish them this information and ask them what needs to happen, and then they'll take it from there, I'm sure.
Okay.
But we'll get that straightened out till we're going forwards, that'll all be straight. So, yes,
Not to complicate things, but if they're listed as the owner, can we authorize signers on that account?
we're gonna kind of back into it backwards.
No, sir,
You
we
can't till I
cannot.
tell you can't.
All right, that's all I needed to hear.
I figured while we're doing this, we might as well give it a shot and see how far we get, but at least maybe we could show the bank this is what needs to happen and how do we make it happen. We may have to come back to the board at a later time when the ownership gets resolved and actually get that straightened out.
I will say that if, it seems like we often, with different aspects of the city, will approve things at a different meeting, that when it goes to city council, they know that it's already been approved at the other level.
Yeah, and that might be important to the city council to know that this is what we need to do. We voted unanimously to do it. That may influence their decision, or it may not, but I think their decision's gonna be pretty obvious, I hope.
It's not, I
The
agree
good
with
part
it's not
is-
their account, so.
Yeah, the good part is, there's not a lot of money in that account, but it takes in quite a bit of money and it goes right back out, but we wanna get that resolved.
And Dennis Shelby has been here for a long time. I can't even remember when Dennis was here. It's probably been 15 years,
No,
not that long.
2010.
2010, about 10 years.
10 years. Yeah, it's been a while.
All right, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve instructing Bank Central to remove Dennis Reed, Dennis Shelby, and Steve Knox as signers on listed accounts in the agenda, and add Hayla Simon and Candace Allen as signers, and leave Jason Gasper as signer of the account.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Jay Randalls, for the approval of instructing Bank Central to remove Denise Reed, Dennis Shelby, and Steve Knox as signers on account number 151492, and to add Ayla Simon and Candace Allen as signers, and leave Jason Gasford as a signer on the account. Roll call vote, please.
Gasford,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob.
I have to abstain on that one.
Should abstain.
I can't, I have to abstain on that.
Abstain.
Okay. Next item.
Instructing Bank Central to remove Jane Gaskell and Steve Knox as signers on account number 7504574, and to add Kelly R. Parker and Ayla Simon as signers. This is an account, while it's at Bank Central, it's actually a convalescent home account. It's the recipient trust fund. So, that's why we're getting Kelly on there as a signer, and getting Ayla on kind of as backup, and then that's going to be
Does that leave Rita on there?
Jason. No, it'll be Jason, Candace, you, and
Ayla.
Ayla.
Okay. So we're just voting to remove Jane and Steve, and then add Kelly and Ayla.
Yes.
All right.
I'd make a motion to instruct Bank Central to remove Jane Gaskell and Steve Knox as signers on account number 7504574, and add Kelly R. Parker and Hayla Simon as signers on that account.
Second.
Have a motion by Jay Randalls, a second by Dr. Hannaford, to instruct Bank Central to remove Jane Gaskell and Steve Knox as signers on the account number 7504574, and add Kelly R. Parker and Ayla Simon as signers on that account. Roll call vote, please.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Gasford.
Yes. Okay. Next next item,
is instructing Bank Central to disallow Kevin Martin O'Brien from receiving any and all financial information and from conducting any financial transactions with Bank Central on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center. So we're just drawing a line now that Kevin's no longer here. He's no longer going to have access to any of our banking information at Bank Central.
gotcha, okay. So, apparently we had went through one of these approval processes and approved him, like we're gonna do you
Yes.
here in a minute, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Make a motion to instruct Bank Central to disallow Kevin Martin O'Brien from receiving any and all financial information from conducting any financial transactions with Bank Central on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Shore Medical Center.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Jay Randalls, to instruct Bank Central to disallow Kevin Martin O'Brien from receiving any and all financial information and from conducting any financial transactions with Bank Central on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center. Roll call vote, please.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
Okay, next item.
So this is the flip side of that. Instructing Bank Central to allow Steve Knox as interim chief financial officer of Share Medical Center to receive any and all financial information and to conduct financial transactions on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center.
Okay. So I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve instructing Bank Central to allow Steve Knox, the interim chief financial officer of Share Medical Center, to receive any and all financial information and to conduct financial transactions on behalf of the Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Jay Randalls, to instruct Bank Central to allow Steve Knox as interim chief financial officer of Share Medical Center to receive any and all financial information and to conduct financial transactions on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Randalls.
Yes.
Okay,
Who had the second on that?
that was Jay Randalls. So the next item is to instruct the community bank to remove Kevin.
Yeah, this one's a little hard to follow, but we've got,
You.
at Community Bank, there's 3 accounts we're looking at. The first one, 127221, is an employee's flexible benefits account. Right now, Candace and Jason and Kevin are authorized signers on that. So this particular motion would remove him on that account. He's also on account number 130702, which is Homestead Refurbishment Account. That's Candace, Jason, Kevin, and myself. So on that one, we're removing he and I. Then there's another account. It's a business account. Right now, Candace, Jason, Kelly, Rita, and myself are all on there as signers. And if you follow this through, I'm being taken off of that account. Rita Goodrich is being taken off of that account. So we're not really adding anybody to any of those accounts. We're just cleaning up who is on those accounts. Does that make sense? We're removing Kevin from 2 accounts. We're removing me from 2 accounts and Rita from 1 account, leaving Candace, Jason, Kelly. That's pretty much it.
Does anybody have any questions about that one?
I'll make a motion to approve item H, the CFO's report as written.
She took the easy way out.
Second.
We have a motion by Kim Boss, second by Dr. Hannaford, to instruct Community Bank to remove Kevin Martin O'Brien as signer on account numbers 127221 and 130702, and Steve Knox as signer on account numbers 130354 and 130702, and Rita Goodrich as signer on account number 130354. Roll call vote, please.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hanford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay.
Next item is instructing Community Bank to disallow Kevin Martin O'Brien from receiving any and all financial information and from conducting any financial transactions with Community Bank on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center.
I make a motion to approve item I on the agenda as written.
Second.
A motion by Kim Ball, second by Dr. Hannaford, to instruct Community Bank to disallow Kevin Martin O'Brien from receiving any and all financial information and from conducting any financial transactions with Community Bank on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center. Roll call vote, please.
Casper,
Yes.
Hanford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
All right, last item.
And the last item, instructing Community Bank to allow Steve Knox as interim chief financial officer of Share Medical Center to receive any and all financial information and to conduct financial transactions on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center.
I make a motion to approve item J on the CFO report agenda as written.
Second.
I have a motion by Kim Ball, a second by Dr. Hannaford, to instruct Community Bank to allow Steve Knox as interim chief financial officer of Share Medical Center to receive any and all financial information and to conduct financial transactions on behalf of Alva Hospital Authority and Share Medical Center. Roll call vote, please.
Hanford,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper.
Yes. Thanks, Bob.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody, for putting up with that. Hopefully, we may have to revisit that one that's got the city of Alva involved, but I'll let you know in a future meeting.
All right. The next item, Dr. Self not being here. Huh? Okay. I'll let you do it. No, he just usually talks about whatever they talk about. Okay.
Approval, disapproval of the appointment of Michael Lawrence as interim chief of staff until Dr. Self returns from deployment. He's our choice for doing that, and we will have to be moving our med staff minutes to fit his ER schedule, so that will kind of be a floating meeting so that we can accomplish that while he's here.
Make a motion to approve the appointment of Michael Lawrence, EO's interim chief of staff until Dr. Self returns from the appointment.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Kim Ball, to approve the appointment of Michael Lawrence, DO, as interim chief of staff until Dr. Self returns from deployment. Roll call vote, please.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper.
Yes. Next item is credentialing committee, appointment of courtesy staff. We have one item, so that would be appointment of courtesy staff, Deanna L. Ward Plain, MD.
He's one of our telehospitalists.
I make a motion to we appoint courtesy staff, Deanna Ward Plain, MD.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Jay Randalls to appoint courtesy staff Deanna L. Ward Plain, MD. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Okay. Coffee.
You don't have any, do we, those are copies?
We wouldn't have those till,
Right. Well, we don't have, there's so much that we haven't been able to get because the computer's being down. So we're gonna have a run catch up to do in February.
so there are the validation calendars for November and December, and I'm assuming some of those will be
Part of that's because we didn't have computers.
incomplete, okay.
Right. So we'll reprint, those are done, they actually are done, so.
So everything that could have been reviewed has been, and is, looks to be compliant with those things that are not. We'll just have this laundry list to do, is that what you're telling me? Okay, has anybody got any questions on that? If not, we need to move to improvement patient care, which is we have two, that's that one.
Weston Rural Health Clinic Policies and Procedures. B and C on improvement patient care.
Yes.
So those are the rural health clinic policy and procedures that will be, that we're implementing at this point. And then we wrote a triage policy and procedure for patients that present to urgent care. They fill out a screening form, and if certain things are hit that form, the front desk clerk, if need be, can take them directly back to the emergency room to not delay care.
So more or less a screening to see if they need to go.
Are an appropriate patient for urgent care.
Gotcha. Okay, so as far as the West End Rural Health Clinic policies and procedures, is there anything that is changing other than, we needed to put this together to be able to be approved for the rural health clinic? It's not necessarily changing any of our procedures, so
Some of
to
the
speak.
It outlines, it defines, like the oversight, there are certain things in a rural health clinic that are different than what we were doing. Supply checklists, signage in the waiting room, just a lot of things, that we had to add policy-wise that's different from just the clinic that we have, so
Okay.
it's lengthy.
Does anybody have any questions in regards to that West End Rural Health Clinic policies and procedures? Or any questions as to why we're doing that?
We are working with a company that's helping us walk through that process of getting certified for a rural health clinic. So a lot of this stuff comes from their recommendations.
Make a motion to approve the West End Rural Health Clinic policies and procedures.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown and a second by Jay Randalls to approve the West End Rural Health Clinic policies and procedures. Roll call vote, please.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
And the next item is the triage for the urgent care policies and procedures, as Candace explained, that's to make sure that those people are proper for going to urgent care. Are there any questions on that?
I make a motion to approve the triage for urgent care policy and procedures.
Second.
We have a motion by Jay Randalls, a second by Dr. Brown, for the approval of the triage for urgent care policies and procedures. Roll call vote, please.
Casper,
Yes.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
All right, cool, thanks. Next is the Share Convalescent Home Report. Kelly?
Okay, well, I won't go over everything in the written report, but you can see our volumes. And I'll point out that with an average daily census of 48 is actually kind of a magic number. CMS requires us to increase our staffing once we hit 49, so 48 is actually the most efficient we're going to be as far as our staffing to patient ratios. So we had implemented some incentives for wages for our direct care staff to combat the problem we have with weekend and holiday help. And so previously we've been, relying heavily on agency staff who don't necessarily promote the same kind of quality and consistency that we like in our care, but they also cost a whole lot. The little bit of incentive over the last 2 months between November and December have had a pretty significant impact on our overtime as well as our agency spend. And then the difference between November and December was about a net $13,000 that we improved by the reduction in overtime as well as the reduction in agency. So hopefully we keep moving in that direction. We posted more ads today on Facebook seeking, continue to seek staff for that aide position primarily, but we've got a few other positions available in the kitchen and in activities. But I think we're moving in the right direction. We did receive our cost report refund, which was about $41,000. We also did finally receive our back payment from Medicaid for the increase in DHS payments. And so I had a pretty good infusion of cash in the month of the end of December, 1st of January. Also, Steve mentioned cash flow being an issue. We weren't able to bill in December, and finally when we got bills out, the first check we got come in was a good one. So we're having our rebound from the cash issue as well. Candace talked about the phones and some of the computer stuff. We're going through some of the similar stuff over there as well. I will let you guys know that I did pass the state licensure exam. I've got one more test to take. That was the easy one, so now I got to take the hard one. But that will be coming up hopefully in February. I'll take the review course February 3rd and 4th in Oklahoma City and see how I feel coming out of that, and probably schedule the test pretty quick after that. So then I'll have a license. No turning back, right? The rest of the items, I believe, are on the agenda, and I'll just, unless anybody has any questions about that report. I don't have the agenda in front of me.
So you have your nurse call system.
Okay, let me go into that. I handed you some marketing materials from All Call. We have been seeking some quotes and estimates that we could actually handle and financially for quite some time. The nurse call system has been on the capital budget list for the nursing home for a lot of years. And it is past time to replace this system. We did finally find All Call. The system they're offering us is going to be an upfront amount of equipment plus ongoing maintenance fee. That's kind of what the deal is. it's really going to change the way we do things a lot. It's going to be a pager system to where we don't have buzzers going off in the hallways and lights flashing and blinking and all that. Our staff will carry pagers. The pagers will track in priority which calls came in first, and so when our aides finish up with one resident, they can look at their pager, see which one they need to go to next in order of priority, and not just the next light they see or the buzzer they hear when they come out into the hall. The system is going to allow us to track how much time it takes to respond to a call. That's twofold benefit. One is management. We know how efficient our staff are at responding to calls, but also when it comes to one of the largest complaints that nursing homes everywhere receive, probably hospitals too, is how long it takes to answer the call light. I can't tell you how many hours people have claimed to be waiting on someone to answer the call. And I do believe that our residents, because of the way our current system works, they wait sometimes longer than they should. But I don't believe that they're watching the clock and actually tracking the time. This system will track the time, and it escalates in notification as well. So when a call light has been activated for 5 minutes, it automatically sends out another call with an increased level of response. It'll go from just going to the aides to begin with. Now it'll notify the nurse. And then after the nurse has been notified, another 5 minutes goes by and it'll notify another level of our staff. And then up to 5 levels of activation. So if somebody's sitting there for 25 minutes with a call light activated, it's going to call me or the director of nurses. So nobody should be waiting that long for a call to be answered, and I think this will really help the staff know who to get to next in terms of, because they don't know. Right now, our current system, there's no way of knowing who pushed their call lights in what sequence if they're in helping their residents. So we're anxious to get this. We don't need board approval on this, but I was pretty excited about us being able to do this, so I wanted to give that report to you and see if you had any questions.
I will just say that I was in there and I saw the old system and it looked like a phone at Del Rancho. It had the little red phone and it had the little light that would beep whenever somebody picked it up. It needed to be replaced.
So Kelly, how are these mounted? Where are they located for the patients?
We'll have them mounted with pull cords in the bathrooms. They'll also be mounted by the head of the bed, where the old system is mounted in the rooms with a push button that goes to the bed.
Okay.
So it'll be the same for our patients. There won't be any difference in how they utilize it. It'll be in the same locations and the same way to use it. We will have a computer set up on the west end that'll house the system, and that'll be really the only additional type of equipment aside from the pagers.
It's one system for both wings?
Yes.
Sounds awesome.
We're pretty excited about it. Nurses, the nursing staff are really excited about it. Maybe they unless they really have been waiting hours. They won't be too excited when I find out.
Yeah. What implementation?
I will call them tomorrow and get it scheduled.
Very good.
They implemented it in Tierna while Tierna was working at Moreland. They implemented it there on an emergency basis in start to finish 3 days. I'm not expecting 3 days, but
The only difficulty I foresee is that if the display is in the west and something is wrong over on the east end.
the system can be pulled up from anywhere, but it's just it's going to be housed down there.
The console.
Yeah.
But they'll have pagers that they carry that tell them where to go.
Mhm.
Okay, any questions for Kelly in regards to that? If not, next item, Kelly, is the medical director retainer agreement.
Okay, with Dr. Self going on his deployment, he is our medical director. It also provides primary care to a good number of our residents. And so we have reached out to LTCMDSOK, the Long-Term Care Medical Director Services of Oklahoma Corporation.
Which is actually
Which is
Dean
actually,
Vaughn that used to be in
Yeah.
Cherokee.
so Dean Vaughn will be the primary medical director with that, but through this retainer agreement, he'll have access to 24/7 providers if he's not available. So he's probably going to be good for us, I think. He does some things that are going to, he already works with Point Click Care in a lot of his facilities, so he's probably going to be able to help us with some of our onboarding into that system in that regard. And he and I spoke for quite a little bit, and I'm kind of excited to see what he can help us out with. And Steve, Candace, I, and Rick have all looked over the agreement, and that's what you have in front of you.
Any questions?
He will start February 1st, being available.
Okay. All right, well, if there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the medical director retainer agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Jay Randalls, to approve the medical director retainer agreement with LTCMDSOK Corporation. Roll call vote, please.
Randalls,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there being no other items requiring a vote, I wonder if I might be excused
Why,
to
sure you
attend the
can.
council.
Get on out of here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Next item, Kelly, thank you for your report. Next item is the homestead report.
And I'm gonna make this really quick, there's lots of people exiting and more people probably needing to. We had exactly the same number of residents in December as we did November. I had no one leave, I had no one come. We are pretty much static for those 2 months. There's not much to tell. The only thing I do notice is our meal costs went way up. Well, not way up, but did go up. And of course, that's because of holiday meals. So that's one thing I did want to point out. Since everything else was static, I didn't want that to be something that you would concern yourself about. It's because we did a lot of holiday meals. So that being said, I do want to say on a positive note, I've already admitted 2 new residents just within the last week, and they're real happy to be there. One of them is a return. Kelly's had him before, and his eyesight has really gone down, and so he is going to stay with us this time for a good amount of time. So we're excited to have him, and then we have a female that also has come to us, and then within about the next 2 weeks, we should have one more male that is slated to come, so we'll have 3 new ones, which we are really excited about. Everyone, what's nice, because of no one leaving and going and coming and everything is really gelling right now. And I know I should never say that, I'll have to knock on wood, but everyone is very happy. People are getting used to each other. It feels like home to everyone that's there. And that just feels good to me too for them. That's it.
Easy enough, thank you. Any questions for her? If not, thank you, Christy. Next item, was there a foundation?
I'll let you guys know that we, because of the care that was received on the floor, we did have a family come to me and Regina actually, and they're looking at establishing a nursing scholarship. And so we're helping to get that established with them, with our friends at the Communities Foundation in Oklahoma City. We are also anxiously awaiting the final audit so we can file our 990. that would conclude my foundation report.
Okay, cool. No St. Anthony's report. No city council report being supposed to gone. I don't have anything to report, so we are adjourned.